Hey everyone, I'm Luke from Weldpro, and today I'm here to walk you through some tips and tricks on troubleshooting wire feed issues when it comes to the Weldpro MIG welders. The MIG process inherently can be riddled with wire feed issues and require troubleshooting in order to get it to feed successfully. A smooth wire feed starts with a good machine setup. It's important that we pair a lot of components together correctly for the correct wire size and type. When first installing the spool of wire in your machine, be sure that the wire is feeding off the bottom of the spool. This will keep the guide tube and the wire from kinking and avoid erratic feed issues. If you are experiencing erratic feed issues, you can check here to be sure your spool is feeding off the bottom. Secondarily, it's very important to check the wire spool tension. If the tensioner is too loose, the spool can free spool and the wire will often come off of the spool. If the tensioner is too tight, it can cause inconsistent or erratic feed issues. Once we're sure our spool tension is set correctly and our wire is fed from underneath the spool, let's go ahead and move on to the next step. This is checking to see that the correct drive roll is installed. If for some reason you're experiencing an inability to feed wire or an erratic wire feeding issue, sometimes the drive roll can be the culprit. Ultimately, two things can go wrong with a drive roll. Number one, the size can be wrong. You need to ensure that when installing wire, you're installing the correct drive roll size on the arbor. The second and most important thing is that if you're running a solid wire, you should be running a smooth drive roll. If you're running a flux cord or a tubular wire, it's important that you run a knurled drive roll. This will allow the drive roll to grip the wire and reduce wire feeding issues. Once you're sure you have the correct drive roll installed, the next important step is to check the drive roll tensioner. This is the black threaded plastic knob that's located above the guide roll on the top of the drive roll assembly. Different wires require different tensions. A solid wire will require a little more drive roll tension, whereas a tubular wire, because of the knurled drive roll, will require a slightly lighter tension. If the drive roll tension is a little too high on something like a tubular wire, it can become ellipsoidal in shape and actually get stuck in the liner on the way out the MIG gun. It's important that the drive rolls aren't too tight. The wire does need to slip if it encounters a problem or a burn back into the contact tip. Alright, stick with me. The next thing we need to talk about is the liner size in terms of wire feed issues. Many people just assume that there's a standard liner size and that all wire sizes will run in this liner. While this is generally true, if you're using an abnormally small or an abnormally large wire, you can oftentimes experience feed issues because of the liner size. If the liner's too small and the wire is too large, the wire simply won't fit through the liner and you'll experience erratic feeding issues. If the liner is sized too large and the wire is too small, the wire will bend inside of the liner, increasing points of friction and actually causing bird's nesting at times. Weldpro liners come standard to handle 023 to 040 size without having an issue. If you need a larger or smaller liner size, there are generics available on many websites. Alright, if you've gone through all these steps so far and you're still experiencing issues, you may have problems with some of the components in the MIG gun itself. The MIG gun only contains a few consumable components, but these components are crucial to wire feed performance as well as overall welding performance. If any of the components in this MIG gun are worn or clogged, you could experience some pretty extreme issues. Fortunately, troubleshooting the MIG gun is easy. Begin by removing the nozzle simply by unthreading it from the MIG gun. Located directly under the nozzle, you'll find the contact tip and the gas diffuser. Most generally, the gas diffuser will remain intact and in good shape unless you have a severe burnback issue or an overheating issue. Most often what we find when MIG welding is an elongated hole inside of the contact tip. This causes improper conduction between the contact tip and the wire itself. This can lead to poor arc performance and erratic feeding issues. Be sure to change your contact tip regularly. To do this, simply unscrew it from the MIG gun counterclockwise and thread a new one in. Be sure to feed your wire through your MIG gun before installing the contact tip, or you might create a bird's nest situation for yourself. You'll note there are 4 holes located around the gas diffuser on the front of the MIG gun. Be sure that when reinstalling the nozzle, these holes are free and clear of obstructions. This is how the shielding gas gets out the end of the MIG gun, so we have to be sure these holes are clear. Secondarily, ensure that your MIG nozzle is completely clear. Use a pair of MIG pliers if need be to remove any spatter or contaminants from inside the nozzle. Reinstall the nozzle by threading it on clockwise. When it comes to MIG welding, taking things slow, walking through the setup step by step, and organizing your chain of wire feed to ensure the most consistent wire feed possible is crucial to achieving a high quality weld. If you're still experiencing wire feed issues, don't hesitate to go back through this video step by step and troubleshoot your machine and try and get it corrected. If you're still having problems, please reach out to our customer service team, who's available 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. Thanks for tuning in. Take a moment to like this video and hit that subscribe button. And from all of us here at Weldpro, we can't wait to see what you build with your brand new MIG welder.